you are, all over the world, and especially Africa, and of course, Zambia. Welcome. This is Frank on Camnet. The UPND government, after 6 months in government, is haggling with a number of governance issues. Some of these we'll discuss this evening with New Hope MMD President Dr. MUMBA. Good evening and welcome.
Frank, thank you so much for having me, and to the audience, it's a joy to come into your homes.
I hope the good Lord is looking after you well.
Frank, I cannot complain. The Lord has been kind to us. I tell my wife that each morning when I turn my head and see my wife out there breathing, it's a good reason to go out there and start to praise Him. So the Lord has been very kind to us, and we're in good health, and the children are doing great. And yeah, we have a lot to thank God for.
What does a good wife tell you? Because you're really home. You have to serve another family, a bigger family, a national family.
Yeah, but I've been doing this for 44 years. In fact,
that's a long time.
Yeah, and I've slowed down now.
Yeah.
If you remember when I was just full-fledged evangelist, I spent a total of 6 months away from home.
Yeah.
Not at the same time, but if you count the months. And I think it's a situation where you agree with your partner, and she appreciates, understands your call and what God has called you to do. And she also knows that if MUMBA stays home and I chain him to the house, she may not be the happiest woman, just like I know what my wife loves to do, and I create an atmosphere at home where she could have her own life and just enjoy being Florence. Because that's really what makes marriage work. If you want her to become like you, or she wants me to become like her, that's when you have conflict in marriage. But I have come to discover that she's an individual created in the image of God with aspirations and dreams of her own. And I've got to create an atmosphere where she can achieve those dreams. She does the same for me. And I think it is something that we have cherished, all about since we got married.
You paint an amazing relationship. If marriage is that good and sounds good from what you're saying, how come we had 22,000 divorces last year, Dr. MUMBA?
I didn't say that. I didn't paint a very nice picture when I was describing this. Actually,
it's a good relationship.
Yeah, what I'm saying,
it works.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
I think you have to find what works for you, Frank.
Yeah.
There are people that cannot give each other space. They're always like this, okay? And that also works for them. I have come to find out that I'm married to a woman who is greatly gifted, and I should never be the one to stand in her way of those gifts. Now, the 25,000 divorces last year, they're a very deep source of concern, and I hope that towards the end of this program we'll talk about it. But it is this that is throbbing in my heart, that if we're going to sustain Zambia as a Christian nation, we need to look at this family unit and the threats that have been created around the family and marriage. And it cannot be a Christian nation if we have weak families, which are not anchored on certain values. And this is really something I would like to push tonight. If we abandon the family values, in preference for, foreign kind of behavior, foreign cultures that try to invade our culture, to the extent that we are trying to be what we are not, our marriages are not going to last. So I think that in order to call ourselves a Christian nation, we have to focus on the family unit. If we can protect it for the future generations, then we can sustain the declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation.
We'll revisit that towards the end of the show. In terms of governance issues, Dr. MUMBA, let's start with the issue which is closer to your heart, especially one who has experienced injustice, detained a couple of times, spent a lot of time in court for trumped up cases. The police have been accused of abrogating human rights when dealing with detainees, especially those perceived to be close to the former government of President Edgar Longo. What is your take on that?
Frank, allow me to start our conversation by saying that justice is basically the hallmark of a Christian nation. And it remains as the throbbing heart for a healthy democracy. Justice for all. Not just for one group, but for all people in that country. Our position is that this justice must never be compromised, so that it is only serving a few. And it must be the project of all of us as Zambians to ensure that justice is equitable. It must be equitable in order for our country to be a united country. And allow me to say a few things while I deal with this subject. First of all, I would like to say that the most significant thing for us to heal from all the injustices and all the pain, the broken economy that we have experienced over the past number of years, we need to aspire for unity in the nation. But I need to explain what this unity is, because I think a lot of people misunderstand when we talk about unity. They sort of give it different interpretations. Unity is not ignoring the criminality of certain individual and just going on like nothing has happened. Let's anchor this unity on two basic fundamentals. Number one, the stubborn truths are, number one, that the UPND is the party that has formed government, and it will be in government for the next 5 years. That's a stubborn fact that we in the opposition and those on the streets and the other institutions must accept, that the Zambian people in April voted for the UPND to lead us for the next 5 years. It's a stubborn fact. You can't shift it. But there's also another stubborn fact. The stubborn fact is more so for the ruling party, that in the same way that UPND is the ruling party, the opposition is not going anywhere. It will be there, and they will continue to oppose. So you have to come to a place where you stop imagining fantasies like, I wish the opposition didn't exist, or let's annihilate the opposition. Our own experience as the movement for multi-party democracy, it's a very, very sad experience, because there was a feeling that we thought that the PF thought that we did not have a right to exist as MMD. They created an atmosphere that we look like criminals in our own country, that everything we did, they had to get on our case. They closed all the doors to freedoms, all the doors to expression. They closed all the doors to us campaigning. They closed every door around the MMD. They arrested most of the senior members and subjected them to untold injustices. And they, maybe in their minds, they were imagining that we wish there was all these MMD people were loaded in a train, and the train explodes and all of them die, then only the PF remains. Sometimes I used to think that's what they're looking for. And allow me to say this, because I'm going to end. But the stubborn truth is that UPND is government. The other stubborn fact is that the opposition will be there and they will oppose viciously and whichever way they want. It is up to us to find a way to coexist. That is the unity we are talking about. You can't want to kill one group so that you remain alone and call it unity. We have to, in our minds, accept that these are Zambians. They are not in power, but they are Zambians just like us, and they are also, they are also equal before the law. I want to quote something that was said by the former President Rupia Banda when he left office. And I thought that it was quite an interesting statement. He said this, and I quote, to the PF after he lost power, the day that he cried. He said, remember that the next election will judge you also. Treat those who you have vanquished with the respect and humility that you would expect in your own hour of defeat.
Right.
I thought that was powerful. It's like he was telling them, we have lost, yes. We are vanquished. You are the victors. But please treat your friends that you have vanquished with humility.
Yeah.
Because there is coming an hour when you are going to be in defeat and you will need to be treated well. Well, that time, Frank, has come for the PF. Can I say they treated MMD with humility? The clear answer is no. And I don't want to get into details because we are now moving forward. You know the history of some of us coming to ZNBC and being arrested for being there. And it was one thing after the other. Everything that we stood for was attacked in order to destabilize our political party. Now, am I now saying that because of what they did, the same thing should happen to them? No, I'm not saying that. But there is what you call in life, you call it karma. The Bible calls it differently. It says you reap what you sow. And I hope our colleagues are going to realize that there are certain things they did, and they must come, they must come out and deal with it. So for me to answer your question, I do not believe that they are being mishandled specifically because they are PF. I have had sessions and a meeting with President Ichilema, and we've talked about several things. One of the things I can say, and I know he's okay with it, is the fact that he was very clear that he has no plans of being vindictive to anybody, because he said to me that he does not want to be like them. And if he does what they did to him, then he's not different from them. So basically for me, I think when I look at how they go and get, they give them the call out to the police, they take the call out and they go to the police, they charge them, and arrest them, they pay their bond, they go home. What a civil way of handling your colleagues. So for me, I think our colleagues should not cry too loudly right now. If they were to ask me, if I just take my own example of what I went through, they are being handled like kings and queens right now.
Tell me, Dr. Mumba, you have just alluded to the fact that President Ichilema has assured you, and I know he's assured the nation that there won't be vindictiveness. How do we ensure, or how does the president ensure that this forgiveness permeates to everybody, to every institution, including the security institutions? I'm not saying the security institutions forgive, but they perform professionally. The rest of the politicians forgive. Forgive is a huge word, and I don't have to tell you how huge it is as a man of the color.
Frank, leadership is everything. I think what President Ichilema, we are standing with President Ichilema and UPND as MMD. I think the reason why he has an opportunity to make a difference is that as a leader, you set out the plan and announce it. That, guys, we are not going to be vindictive. Therefore, and also, if it's my member of UPND who goes wrong, treat him like you treat a PF person or an MMD person. And I think he has said that several times. The problem we have is, like you have rightly put it, the institutions that carry out these responsibilities, the SEC, the DEC, and all those, both of those have visited me in a harsh way in the past. The police, for instance. You must appreciate that these institutions are the same institutions that served under Patriotic Front. Right. They served under the MMD. Some of them have even survived from UNIP. They are the same system, and they have got only one way of working. So it will be a little rusty as they start to transition in another phase of equitable delivery of justice. So I am not moved when there is some kind of skirmish somewhere and they overdo it and they have a heavier hand and now they're dealing with this one and that one, because it's the same police service that has been used to do it the same way. But my hope is that, having set the vision that this is going to be equitable justice delivery to all Zambians, through time these institutions are going to unlearn their bad ways, unlearn the new ways of being able to treat everyone equitably. So I think I agree with you. It's not a question of forgiveness. And I want to make this very, very clear to the Zambian people. To be united in Zambia does not mean that we ignore or turn a blind eye to those who have committed crime, those who have stolen through corruption from the Zambian people. I think what we need right now is for our colleagues in the Patriotic Front to cooperate, not just with UPND, but to cooperate with Zambia. Once you are called to the police to be asked a question about something they suspect you could have done, in dignity and respect and in honor of unity, go to the police station like we used to go, knowing that they want to ask you questions. All you do is answer the questions. If you are innocent, the questions would, they'll stop asking you questions. If they think you have cases to answer, they'll take you to court. That's how the process of justice works. There's nothing wrong with that. I am still here. I'm not dead, Frank. Neither am I lame. But if we were to play a video of what I went through the 10 years of PF in government, you will be shocked and say, Nevers, how come you're still alive? But by God's grace, I'm here. And I want to testify to our friends in the Patriotic Front. You will not die either by just going to the police and show yourself as a leader. If they say you stole 60 billion kwacha, you answer them, where did I steal it? Where is it? And if they've got evidence, they will lay it on the table. If it's fake, you disapprove it. That's what the justice system, but you can't stand there and say, anytime the police call you, it's Ichilema trying to fix me. No. Ichilema was not there when you were doing what you are being accused of doing. So let's take justice for what it is. And if anybody mistreats you and uses a heavy hand against you, we have the human rights where you can go and report. You can also report to the police that you have been abused yourself, the same people, because you deserve to be protected as a citizen.
Before we leave this issue, let me raise one man out of this, and this man is a president. Okay, the president of the country, and I've been around for a long time, since independence. Every president who comes out of office is persecuted at every turn. How do we deal with that? If you're going to ask the nation to heal, you're going to start up there, and find a way of dealing with that, the outgoing, president. So many times, immunity is removed. Even now, the former president is on record as saying, look, they're after me, okay? If we don't find a closure, even if and when President Ichilema leaves, office, the next man could go after him, even if he was, innocent. How do we find a closure to this? Because it's been an ongoing situation, Dr. Mumba.
Yes, it's unfortunate though, but I think that's why I addressed our colleagues in the Patriotic Front, because they're a former ruling party like us. In fact, if the PF just said, well, Nevers, with your team, can we sit for over a cup of coffee? Let's talk about what happened to you and how you handled it. If there was that kind of relationship, we'd talk to them about these issues. We are seeing them making the same mistakes we made, or things that, the threats that were raised against us, and they're walking right into those threats. We could say, guys, you can avoid this and go this way, but there's this thing about politics that, you don't like each other, they think you cannot talk, and I think we should move beyond that. How do we stop this thing of subjecting former presidents to this kind of, behavior where they are always incarcerated or taken to court? I think it's a tricky issue. I released a statement where I gave advice to the Patriotic Front. It was unsolicited, so they didn't have to take it. I said to them, look, at the end of the day, President Longo holds as much of a key as President Hakainde Ichilema. In fact, President Lungu can help President Ichilema. President Ichilema has made a statement that he's not interested in vindictiveness. I wish that President Lungu could pick that up and begin to do certain things that are going to make his colleague believe that, look, I am here. If there's anything that I did, I am ready to apologize to the Zambian people. Or I'm ready to put it back if it is that way. He has to be that bold so that he helps the country to transition from former presidents being incarcerated. Now, the difficulty that I see with President Hakainde's promise of making sure that he doesn't remove the immunity is that it's not all in his power. Do you understand? He can have that position, but he doesn't hold express power in a democracy. Because if we go to court with all these cases that are coming, let's say, for instance, President Lungu's name continues to come out in all these cases, and the Zambians begin to say, no, but we want to hear President Lungu's side of the story. The Zambians can demand that. And President Hakainde will say, no, I don't want to touch him. The Zambians will say, we put you there. Can you please allow us to hear what President Lungu is going to say, so that we don't hold him as a criminal, so that he can acquit himself. At that time, he loses control over this issue. So the point I'm trying to make here is that I think President Lungu should be happy. This is the 6th month. There has been no talk about his immunity being removed. In previous regimes, right now, Chiluba was already sweating. Right now, President Rupia Banda was already sweating. The only ones who escaped are those who died, Michael Sata and Levi Mwanawasa. So, but this is the 6th month. And there are no war drums that you hear that President Lungu will lose his immunity. There's no drum like that. I wish he could use this window to come up with a way in which he could stabilize and calm down the Zambians by coming out to say, like Kenneth Kaunda said when he left power. He said to them, listen, if I did anything that offended you, I really apologize. He can also say, if I am implicated in anything I could have done without my knowledge, or maybe with my knowledge, that injured or took away anything from the Zambian people, I apologize and I'm ready to bring it back. It sounds diminishing, but it could become the point of change for Zambia, because it gives strength to President Hakainde to say, Zambians, you heard what this gentleman has said. He's ready to bring it all back. Why should we lift his immunity? Right. So they need to work together, the PF, the UPND, and the Zambian people, and all the other political parties. We need to move away from this vindictiveness that we saw in the past number of years.
Since you wear so many hats, I'm going to ask you this question as a man of, the caller. Would you love to see President Longo and President Ichilema, for example, in church together, at some service together? I saw the former First Lady and the present First Lady, really hugging each other. Albeit it was at a funeral service, but it was a beautiful picture. Wouldn't you love to see a picture of President Longo and President Ichilema in church, for example?
I would like to see more than that.
Right.
Optics are good for people. Optics are good for people to say, oh, we saw the First Ladies, the former and the incumbent one hugging each other. It's good for the optics. But truly, I would like to see more than that.
Like what?
I would like to see a real reaching out to one another. And here, and I want the Zambian people to hear me. I do not want to be misunderstood. And I think that, personally, I qualify to talk about these things. I've held office in this country at a high level, but I'm also a pastor for 44 years. I'm leading a political organization. So I have earned my right to say something. And I think that what we need in this country is to create an opportunity where the former president can get in his car and call the president there and say, my brother, I want to talk to you. Do you understand? Before they appear together in church.
Right.
My brother, I want to talk to you. And then drive there. I don't think President Ichilema will say no to President Lungu. No, he won't. He said, my brother, you're welcome. And they'll go there and talk. It may not be an easy talk, But that's what men do. Yeah, leaders do that. Leaders sit with rebel leaders from the bush with blood on their hands, and sit with a sitting president and negotiate for peace on behalf of the people. And this is the same thing that I think the President Longo needs to do. He should not sit home and feel sorry for himself, or sit at home and hope that nothing happens to him. There's something he can do to help heal this nation. There are a lot of questions that Zambians have about how he led this country. There are a lot of questions people have over many transactions in this country where they connect in their minds his name to them. It is up to him to come out and start to say, Brother President, I need to talk to you. And in their discussion, they can come up with a way in which to together face this. But I'm not saying by that they avoid justice. Justice must not be compromised. You know, Frank, you and I can remain friends, but if justice is at stake, we must allow it to take its course, and also be mature enough to know that that was just justice passing, and we have to give way to it, but now we are back as friends. And that is the way I think we should answer your question, because after that interaction at this level, when they drink tea together and whatever they do together, and you see them in church together, it means much, much more for the people of this country than just some cosmetic appearance, which has happened before in this country, where you bring this one holding hands with the other and they don't mean it. The moment they leave that place, they're scheming on how to destroy one another. I agree with you. It would be great for optics, but I would like to see a little bit more, and that is to really touch the heart of each other and talk about issues.
Your justice has been delayed so many times. You know, many people's justice were delayed in the PF, government. Say justice delayed, is justice, denied. The judiciary was compromised. It was politicized. Today we've got a different, Chief Justice. Are you encouraged of some of the programs he's putting in place to ensure that justice is delivered on time?
Frank, let me use this opportunity to really express myself. I think that what we have today in the Chief Justice, to me, it seems like a breath of fresh air. Justice is sweet. In fact, justice is the essence of God. Justice is who God is. So wherever justice is being dispersed, it's like God is present. It's like the anointing, the glory of God is present, because God dwells in justice. And therefore, I have listened to this new Chief Justice. I've been encouraged by the statements that he has made. He said that this justice system will not be the same from this point on. In other words, all the cases that have not been dealt with, I want us to have a fast track to deal with them and deliver justice to the people that have been waiting for years. I know how long it took 4 years for our case of MMD to be exhausted. By that time, you don't have a political party. You have to start from scratch. So, quick justice helps to preserve things. And so, I think that the other thing that he has talked about, rather, is what they have introduced, the Economic and Financial Crimes Court. That Economic and Financial Crimes Court is a tool that I think is going to work well for Zambia. Not only for the people accused of corruption, but also for the Zambians. The people accused of corruption will need speedy trial so that they can get on with their lives. Some of these issues from before, cases last for 4 or 5 years, like I've said. By that time, you have even forgotten what the case is that you are doing. My case that I was accused of from Canada lasted 7 years. When I was accused, when I was High Commissioner, that I'd taken money from government. It took 7 years, to the extent that at the end of the case, I'd even forgotten the basics of what they were accusing me of. And I think that this new Chief Justice is giving us hope. And I hope that he could have that, because the problem of Zambia are the compromised justices. We need to tighten that. In other words, if a judge is caught, a magistrate is caught being bribed with their officers, the punishment should be double. And that must be a foregone conclusion. We must be tough. And I hope Chief Justice Malila is going to be tough with this. We can't write a lot of complaint to him and then there's no reply like what used to happen before. We want him to respond. The Judicial Commission must be responsive. You know, we complained about 2 judges as MMD at some point. And by the time they responded to our complaint, it was years after the judge had already retired. And the response we got is that we can't do anything about this because the judge is retired. What were they doing for 3 years? Why couldn't they respond? These are non-functional institutions that must be monitored that they function. So any judge that is caught being bribed, there must be a big punishment for them. And it must be publicly done to send a strong message. You cannot manipulate justice every day and have a country which you call a Christian nation. So I think that for me, we support him, we support his efforts, we wish him well, we pray that he's going to understand that God's eyes are on the halls of justice for the small people, for the opposition member, for the ruling party member, for the person on the street, for a young person, for the poor and for the rich. Justice must be equitable.
Related to that, Dr. Mumba, you know, the judgment, you know, against the post has been overturned. It's got to start all over again. One really sore point in the media, in the press freedom of this country. Again, your thoughts on that?
Again, I add it on to my honoring the new Chief Justice. I think, to me, this is one of the sweetest judgments that are outside the judgment of Judge Noah when she ruled in 2019, you know, over the MMD case. This to me was next to that in sweetness. And the reason I say it is a sweet judgment is because it deals with the very core of right and wrong. In 2016, when the post was dissolved and liquidated by the government, I say government, I'm coming to that to explain. I made a statement. I said this is one of the darkest hours of our country, that you could use political office to try to stifle the opposition voice. I made it very clear that we could hear the war drums that the post was going to get into trouble. And I think that President Lungu's government did not handle it in a manner that they could hide their dislike for the post, to the extent that what happened to the post was almost calculated. You know, like on a chessboard, pieces were moved to make sure that the post could not survive. And I won't get into that. But that's really my position, and, you know, I don't have to put it on anybody. I won't even put it on my party. This is really the way I viewed it, and the statement I made it that way. It's on record. Now, it is wrong, not only for that time, but even for now, for a president or a party in government to use the privilege of power to destroy someone's destiny or future, using the institutions of government to silence your opponents. It will always come back and bite you. God is not dead in justice matters. He looks like he has given up, and he gives power to Pharaoh and Pilate to act powerful in their season. To the extent that Jesus' crucifixion looked like these guys were so powerful that they could even crucify the Son of God. And God's hands were tied, because he has got his moment. He's got what I call the third day of resurrection. He makes all these superficial authorities and presidents and powers that be to feel powerful until just one little stream. And so I think it was wrong what they did to do that to the post. Frank, you and I know this. Fred Member is a friend of mine. Fred Member is not one of the easiest cats in town. He carried a very sharp razor in his hands with the Post newspaper. And many people that came in contact with him, really got cut with that razor blade. And I'm one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, I was vice president, and he wrote articles that he felt free to write, because it's a democracy. Some of it, when I read it, I called him. It was not true, but he had already written it.
You don't think he went too far?
Well, it is possible that he could have even gone too far.
And maybe even injured other people?
He could. I was injured, but I had to let it go, knowing a democracy is a democracy. But even with that, even with his injuring anybody else, he deserves to be handled well and equitably before the law. You cannot say, because you have injured me as a president, I'll shut you down. Because you have spoken against my political party, I'll use my power in office to shut you down. Fred Membe has a right to be heard and be able to express himself there. But if he crosses the line, sue him for crossing the line. Don't use ZRA to pounce on him. Because by the time they raise ZRA to pounce on the Post, there are many companies that belonged to PF people that had, offended ZRA in their payments. And that's not how ZRA operates. When you start a small business as a Zambian, small scale, medium scale, the job of ZRA and government is to prop the young upcoming Zambian businesses so that they succeed and continue to pay tax. So they don't come to shut you down and kill you.
You can actually negotiate and stagger
the payment. And I'm sure Fred could have done that if that was the problem. But that was not the problem. So I think for me, there's no need for us to be acting, afraid about this. It is true that the manner in which that case was handled was wrongly handled, and we agree with the Supreme Court when they say the procedure of the liquidation before, during, and after this whole process was illegal. And we agree with the Supreme Court because we could see it from where we stood, that this was vindictiveness. May this be a lesson, not just for the PF, because it has come back to bite them, but let it be a lesson for future presidents, future governments, the UPND and the governments that will come thereafter. We should never use state power to get back at those that oppose us.
You have alluded to the judiciary being on the good footing, under the tutelage of the new Chief, Justice. Would you say the same thing about the investigative, wings? And I say this, and because people are divided about this, I think the majority say they're virtually bungling these cases.
Frank, we live in a real life. This is real life. This is not stage life on a platform, on a stage. We are living real life. Real life has good things happening and bad things happening. Life has bad judgment, poor judgment, and good judgment. Amongst the cases that are being assembled against those that the state feels have offended the Zambian people, there are going to be good cases tied together well, and there will be weak cases tied together. And sometimes we must understand that even when the case is lost in court, it does not mean the person who has won that case was right. In fact, just the way you assemble the case determines the outcome of the case. And you know that. I've been in court so many times. There's one case that somebody had assembled, one of our MMD cases, one lawyer assembled it in a certain way. I had to take it to another lawyer, and I took it to another lawyer. He looked at it and said, who the heck assembled this case? You have lost before you enter court. So he dismantled the case and rebuilt the case. And it was win after win after win. And it's all up to how this is done. So, to cut the long story short, even with these corruption cases, some of them will be won by the state. Some of them will not be won by the state. But it is good for justice that these cases come before the courts of law to be adjudicated. And whether it is lost because somebody did not put a detail there, it's human error. And that is found everywhere. But we must do this process of seeking justice on behalf of the Zambian people.
Let's move to the issue of gender, balance. Foundation, one, led by Linda Kasande, and other consortium of NGOs have complained, even written to international organizations, that there's imbalance in terms of, gender appointments in key government positions. Part of the question, do you subscribe, to that? Two, do you see this putting pressure, on the UPND government, on the president, in terms of now giving lots of jobs, to women, maybe without even thought of, is this job necessary? Is this job critical? And I can talk about the new permanent secretaries, for them as permanent secretary for special, duties. So to unravel this question, I'm saying, do you subscribe that there should be more women in key positions? Two, do you see this being, pressure point now for the president to appoint more women?
Well, look, there's a saying, an English saying, it's a wheel that squeaks the most that gets the oil, okay? In a democracy, it's all about lobbying. It's all about squeaking. Just like the church, and we'll come to that in a few minutes, if the church wants to be heard in this country, they've got to squeak. They've got to speak. They've got to get involved and begin to lobby for what is righteous, for what is right. If they don't, the country goes down the drain. The same thing with women. Women, I must say, have been very, very good lobbyists, even for themselves, because they squeak. And my encouragement to the women is that keep squeaking. Because in a democracy, if you don't squeak, you die out. They forget about you. You got to keep saying, we are not there. We want to be on that table. We are not there. We want to be on that table. The more you say it, the more you make yourselves available, the more you prepare yourselves. Because you cannot just be saying, we want to be around that table of lawyers. You've got to go and train to become a lawyer so that you can have equitable space on that table. Right. You can't say, I want to become, a permanent secretary dealing with energy. Maybe you need to have some understanding of that framework so that you become a ready candidate for that. You can't say, I want to be a bodyguard to the president when you have not gone to any security training. So even women, I want to encourage our women to continue squeaking, because I think there's a response that, women are being grafted in. I'm very happy today that we have a speaker who is female. I think that is phenomenal for us. And she's doing an excellent job. We have a vice president who is female. I mean, those are huge responsibilities. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the PSs, we have several of women as PSs. And I think the women are taking places which they never used to take before. If you ask me, is there progress in acknowledging women in leadership positions than before? The answer is yes. I think now women are being looked at as those that can play just about any role that any man can play. So, but even with that, I'll say to my dear sister Linda from the Chapter 1 Foundation, keep squeaking. Because the day you stop squeaking, that's the day your numbers begin to go down. That's just how the democracy works.
Are the youths squeaking loud enough? They've just been, given part of the Black Mountain. Is that the best way of responding to the cries of the youths? You've just come back from the Copper Belt, and the confusion surrounding that Black Mountain, Dr. MUMBA. Is this right, or is just a political decision where the president just woke up and said, let's give them, because maybe we're becoming slightly unpopular?
Frank, I'm not just from the Copper Belt. I'm from Kitwe itself. And my church was just opposite the Black Mountain.
Absolutely.
And a number of Jerabos, you call them. Some of them were members of my church.
Oh, really?
So I am very familiar with this issue.
Those guys came to pray at your
Oh yeah, those guys, it's just the name. Some of them really love God. You know, I mean, it's like somebody, they call them by a certain description, but they're just real human beings looking for survival. They're just looking for a job to do. And it happens to be like, you know, if you're going to do the slag there from the mine, you got to be tough. Otherwise, you're not going to survive there. So they're just, you know, our own children, boys and girls. And they used to come to church, a number of them. Now, first of all, I believe in the empowerment of our young people. This administration made huge promises to the young people.
Yeah.
And they have to look everywhere where they can find something for them to do. Now, is this the right decision to give away the Black Mountain to the young people? I think that it is our asset as Zambians. And I would rather our young people have it than the Chinese. Let me just put it, you know, bluntly. I would rather our young people use that in the manner that they can get something out of it. They may not get as much as the Chinese would get out of it because, you know, they are doing the real basics. But like we say in Bemba, in other words, it's our stuff. And I think we commend the government for giving to them. The challenge we have is that these groupings that are being made, you know, that are going to participate in exploiting the Black Mountain, I think they need to be well monitored, because I like it because then they can be cooperatives that can actually pay taxes to government. So in that regard, I think it's a win-win situation. You give an opportunity to our young people, and that's a lot of them that are going to benefit. That will be pulled out of some kind of poverty. The only thing I say to the young people is that you've got to have a vision longer than just the Black Mountain. For instance, you look at the Black Mountain, make some money from there, then reinvest that money in some more sustainable business. Maybe agriculture or something that you can now live on for a longer period of time, because the slag is, you know, it's not going to be there forever, and the Black Mountain may not be there forever. So I think that the decision by government is welcome. They cannot help everybody by that, but a small percentage of our young people will have their lives improved, and to me that is important. But what we need to do is to teach our young people how to exploit these opportunities. Not just to take it, sell it for 5 ngwe and then eat today. They've got to have a vision and some people to guide them, to help them. Government to give some support systems that educate our young people that you are not working just to eat today. You are working so that you can plan your future. Today you are making money from the Black Mountain. Tomorrow the Black Mountain will not be there. How are you going to survive? By that time you have 3 children in college. So it is important for our young people to take this as an opportunity and have a good plan and make sure government oversees the fact that these young people are being helped to sustain that provision that has been made available to them.
The next thorny question, you know, relates to Lower Zambezi. You know, the controversial mine, which is supposed to go up, you know, there. Without preempting how you're going to respond, I am not so sure whether your wife loves this idea. I know how she loves plants, you know, flowers, nature, and everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I speak for her that I don't think she likes the idea. Let me also state my position. I don't like it, but having said that, are we getting enough from tourism? I'm not saying the mine should go on. I'm looking at these situations now in a different sphere, okay? Because even tourism that is going on there, I don't think we're getting much. I think most of the tourist attractions there are being run by foreigners. So deal with the mine thing, and then if you want to compliment what I've said about tourism, you're welcome to do that.
Frank, I hope I don't disappoint you in the manner that I'm going to address that question. Look, the challenge we have as a people is that we have a feeling that we know exactly what every Zambian needs, and we want to think for them. There's also an arrogance in us, in high places sometimes, that we think we can answer the questions for people in Lower Zambezi on their behalf in our boardrooms, and make decisions on their behalf, and tell them this is what you need. You need a mine, or you don't need a mine. I don't think that it is the way that we are going to lead ourselves and govern ourselves. I think in the same way President Ichilema has decided to devolve the CDF to the constituency to the levels of $25 billion kwacha, 25 million kwacha. That concept suggests that he believes that those people have enough sense to determine their own path which they wish to take. Here is the money. Make a decision how you develop your constituency. Why don't we take the same concept and apply it to Lower Zambezi? Lower Zambezi has people who live there. It's a constituency. There's an MP there. There are chiefs there. There are people that were born there and that's their home. Shouldn't we be listening to them as to what they really want? Do they want a mine or they don't want a mine? Because, each one of them has, marks for it and crosses against it. For instance, there are those who believe that the mine, if it came there, mines do not necessarily benefit the people of the area. The money will be externalized to other countries. And they may be given labor jobs of sweeping the mine, but those people may not be fully qualified to play any role in those mines. So they won't benefit directly except some real low jobs, and they don't know how that money is going to end up. So they may not be interested. Now, you look at the lodges that are there, and you have said it so rightly, that, if you are paying 40,000 kwacha per night, which person from Lower Zambezi is going to live there with his family to have a holiday or something like that? They are booked online from outside the country, and people go there. So each one of them has got challenges. The right thing it's a double-edged sword. So for me, I'm not going to act as a champion with the arrogance of thinking I know what the people of Lower Zambezi want. I think government needs to go down to the people and say, these are the benefits of this from our point of view. This is how this will serve you as a community. Let's talk. What do you think we should do? That type of governance is the governance that shall establish the Zambian people to be the owners of their own resources. Because if they decide for a mine, don't worry about it. It's their decision. Right. If they decide that we don't want a mine here, we just want to be looking at the flowers, it's their decision. So for me, Frank, I'm sorry I cannot answer as to my preference because I don't live in Lower Zambezi. I respect you. I think that we are overlooking a very important. I respect your views. This is Frank On Camnet. My guest on this program is Dr. Nevis MUMBA, who is president for New Hope MMD. When we come back, we spend maybe 10 minutes on one or two questions, and then you can actually start sending in any issues you'd like Dr. MUMBA to deal with. And then after about 5-10 minutes, if you want to call, if you want to interrupt me, please, you're free to do that. This is Frank On Camnet. When we come back, the Penal Code.
Camnet TV is becoming big and better. You can now watch Camnet TV wherever you are around the world, simply by downloading the Camnet TV app. With Camnet TV app, you only use less bundles. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Flora Lukalu, all the way from South Africa. You are watching Camnet channel, not just another channel. God bless you. Stay tuned.
We testify. We celebrate. For all you've done, Lord, we give you all the praise. Oh, we testify. We celebrate. Oh, Lord, we give you all the praise.
This is Frank on Camnet. My guest, Dr. Nevas Mumba, President of New Hope, MMD. You're very strong on family values, and you spoke quite a bit, in the early part of the interview. I want you to tell our viewers really the importance of family values and your take on the reformation somebody wants to bring in the penal code, making it easy for bigamy, making it easy for for polygamy, for abortion and things like that. Again, in a Christian country, Dr. Mumba?
Frank, this is an extremely important time for us to confront the issue that is before us. Let me put it this way. This whole issue of debating the penal code and the submissions from the law development agency, where they are touching on shifting the matters of the Marriage Act and also the issues that involve abortion in a manner that they are explaining themselves, and I won't get into exactly how they're proposing to shift it because I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
But I speak in my authority as, first of all, a leader in this country, but also as a pastor, and also as a Christian, being a custodian of the Christian faith. Let me put it clearly that as a people, we have decided and chosen for ourselves to be called a Christian nation. We cannot call ourselves a Christian nation, then craft laws that contradict the very values and the virtues upon which we anchor our society. I know that there are many explanations from those who discuss this across the table that know that what they mean, there's already polygamy in this country, there's nothing new, people still have 2, 3, 4 wives and stuff. I'm not talking about that. The moment you craft it as part of law to allow people to now freely do those things, you are creating a totally different society. We should not be embarrassed to call ourselves Christians as a Christian nation. We made this choice unless we go back to the table and dissolve ourselves and not become a Christian nation. South Africa came out in the open and said we're a secular state. They made a choice. We have made a choice to be a Christian nation. It means that we must be committed to the values that truly make us Christian. And to be a Christian nation, it is important to note that the heartbeat of a Christian nation is the family unit. If you compromise the family unit and the values within the family unit, you dissolve the very essence of a Christian nation. So the reason why some of us fight like this is because we are students of history. When we go to Bible college to study theology, we are taught on how nations and societies evolve from a moral nation to a nation that has moral bankruptcy. It's these small steps like Zambia is starting to want to take that end the country into a deplorable and bankrupt, immoral nation or state. So I would like to oppose anything that hypocritically calls us a Christian nation. But the laws are saying something else. We are what our laws say we are. We are not what we say we are. We are going to be known by our laws. And I want to insist, Frank, the secret of our Christian nation is in the family unit. And you agree with me, like you said in the beginning. The family unit in Zambia is under threat and attack. 25,000 divorces in the last year. 25,000. Now, those are the ones recorded. But there are those, we may be in the 40,000, because some of them don't even go to court. They just say, and they don't dissolve anything, but they are no longer together. The family unit is under stress because the economy is contributing to it, the social media is contributing to it, the society we are living in, people are letting go of those values under which you and I were brought up, Frank. Our parents were not crazy to let us do certain things and not do certain things. That's the responsibility, and I speak as a parent myself. So those who are saying, no, this is just something we want to do because the entire global community is doing. We are not the entire global community. We are Zambia. We are a Christian nation. We have chosen a path. We are not Kenya. We are not South Africa. We are not Bulgaria. We are not America. We are Zambia. And those things that hold us together, we must hold them dearly. So we notice that the family is already under threat. Now, we cannot bring another threat to the family. If we lost 25,000 marriages last year, then you say you can go ahead and marry as many as you want to marry. And, you know, I read yesterday, one of the MPs, Katuta, I think she was saying that even as women, we also want to have more men than one. You see, the moment you open a window, and the reason the law exists is to create a difference, Frank, between a society of human beings and a community of animals. When you go in the jungle, there are no foundational stones that say, mother, you can't sleep with your son. Grandmother, you cannot have sex with your youngest son. There are boundaries that are created for human beings. Animals don't have that. Animals, the son grows up, the young animal grows up and rides the mother, and they have children. That's the animal kingdom. We are not animals. And by choosing Christ as the anchor of our nation, we are saying there are certain things. Of course, somebody will say, no, but brothers, you realize adulterers have always been there, people have always been married. Listen, it doesn't mean because adultery exists that we should put it within the law to protect it now, to make it legally so that adultery becomes an acceptable act. That's what we are saying. We can't do that. There are times when a true member of parliament, last night he was in an adulterous situation in a club or in a lodge. He is in parliament to legislate on whether to allow, that kind of morality or adultery to be legalized or not. Most of them who care about their country and they care about their children, they care about their future. Although he was involved in the act yesterday, he will say, no, we should not make it a legal position. The reason I'm saying this, Frank, is to say that we oppose these efforts that are being made to tamper with what we are doing in terms of law in marriage and also in abortion. Like the Americans say, Frank, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely.
So we have not complained about the law about marriage. We have not complained about abortion. So leave it alone. Ask us what concerns us in the current constitution and we'll let you know.
Right. On the same subject, and very briefly because of time, we've got one or two other issues to cover. You have explained the importance of family units. If you allow me, could you comment on these two ladies who happen to be family members, actually my relatives, quarreling in public, bringing political and the family issues to the public fore? Would you quickly comment on?
Yeah, I'll be very brief.
Yeah, you're close to them.
Yeah, it's very important. Both Madam Mumbi and Professor Luo, these are my nieces. You know that. Real nieces. And I really love each one of them. I treasure these two. And so when I read or listened to their clips, both of them, it broke my heart. And I know that it did break your heart and the hearts of the family members. I thought that was really unfortunate. Before I come to politics, from the family point of view, I felt that we were being exposed as a family. I mean, these are issues we can solve. I mean, we have pastors, bishops, we have priests, we have elders in our family that can deal with these issues of differences. There's no need to go there. So what I did as an uncle, and I used that authority, I did a voice note for both of them, the same one. I sent it to Professor Kandu, and I sent it to my niece Mumbi. And I said, we can't tread this path. Stop it. And, you know, in Bemba tradition, I may be young, but if I'm your uncle, it's important you listen.
Absolutely.
And I think, I don't know, I'm sure you or many others could have also added voice to it, but I've not heard them continue.
I raised it with somebody who's older than me.
Yeah.
To intervene.
Okay, that's right. So basically what has happened now is that we have heard that that has gone down, and that's the way it should be at family level. But on the political front, I think that the PF will have to go through this fight because they're jostling for power to be who's going to become the leader. So for me, I fully understand. That's why I said in the beginning, if PF really wanted to avoid some of the problems, they can say, neighbors, can we meet for coffee? Because the challenges, I mean, the experiences I'll give them, they will help them. They will continue to fight until a leader is found.
Right.
It only becomes destructive if once they find the leader, they don't support that leader and wish to continue to fight, then PF is gone.
Let me raise just one issue, and then we'll check if we've got any messages. And if you want to call, please call us now. Next month, it's Youth Week, and there will be Endeavor, which will be graced by the president. What issues would you like to be addressed, during the Youth Week and indeed at the Endeavor?
I think just two quick things. First of all, I think the president should allow the young people to speak. They need to talk to him, to tell him what they feel. It should not be a monologue. It should be, a debate where they raise their concerns and their fears so the president can hear them. And then the other issue is about jobs that we talk about. We need to rephrase how we deal with jobs. Not even God gives jobs. God gives skills and gifts. And the young people of our country must be encouraged to really zero in on the gifts that they have. Because at the end of the day, when everything else fails, your gift will push you through. So I think that this thing of job, give me a job, government must give me a job, government must give me a job, that might be an endless song. We must create opportunities where our gifts and the gifts of the young people can start to create jobs around themselves and around their gifts. Then we shall have a sustainable system of creating jobs in our country. So I think the president should be open, listen to the young people, and the young people should be challenged to exploit their gifts and their skills.
My guest this evening, Dr. Nevas in MUMBA. Do we have any messages that have come through? All right. Good evening, Ambassador Frank and Dr. MUMBA. My name is Cynthia, and I'm in Canada. I really appreciate the voice of Dr. MUMBA is rendering to the national issues. I would like to ask him about the thoughts on the role of the church and in our political dispensation. How does the church redeem itself as a voice of reason and be relevant? Brilliant. Do we have another one? The discourse is stupendous. Is really government on course regarding dismantling domestic date? Another one? Do we have another one? Good evening, Camnet. Point of correction. The current constitution sets out two types of marriage, civil and customary. Marriage prohibits polygamy. Customary traditional allows polygamy. When you break the law by marrying under civil marriage, you commit a crime called bigamy, which carries 5 years imprisonment. So ZODC is suggesting that this case becomes a civil case. Well, this is what we're talking about. They're trying to talk with that. Could you deal with that? Maybe we start with the last one.
The last one. This is. I'm not going to get into the semantics of the civil and customary law. I know that. I'm aware of it. The moment you start to say remove it from being a criminal case and make it a civil case, you're already proposing an easy way out for a certain lifestyle to be endorsed.
Yeah.
And we are saying no to that. It starts slowly. Like I tried to say, Frank, in our studies, we learned that to influence a society, to move from one level of morals to the lower one, you use things like art.
Yeah.
You use Hollywood, movies. They begin to suggest, things where they want to drive the country. And people, as they watch those soaps and operas and start to enjoy them, the issues that we cannot talk about around the dinner table, like homosexuality or even polygamy or divorce or abortion, those things we can't comfortably talk about. Yeah. They bring them in movies. That's what I'm saying. I've got nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with Impali. Impali is just a soap. It's trying to tell you this is what happens every day. Yeah. But at some point, that Impali program will start to suggest that that's okay, that's normal. Yeah. And before long, when you go to vote for that, you vote a certain way. That's how society shifts through the arts, sport, and other things. So I just want to say that let's be careful that in the manner in which we lower the band for the punishment for bigamy, for instance, or for the issue of polygamy, we are careful that we do not sound permissive, that we now try to suggest that it's okay, let's do it this way. The reason why we think it's not okay is that our being different as a country is the fact that we've chosen to be a Christian nation. And the Christian nation rose on a certain rail. And this is the rail we would like to keep. And I just thought I needed to say that.
Well, how the church is going to redeem itself?
I think the church has challenges right now, but also opportunities. I think the church we have seen how we have failed to be a voice. I said earlier today when I released the statement, I said if we are not careful as a church, we are going to become media commentators. We only commentate when an issue that affects the values of the church are raised and threatened in the country. That's when we start to do press releases. We condemn, but we don't have enough people in parliament that we train under moral law of the Bible, and we don't have them. And I need to add here, somebody asked me, said, but we need to influence parliament so that they vote right. We need to understand Zambian and African politics and parliament does not operate from, the decisions are not made on the floor of the house. Yep. They are made in political party caucuses. So if you want to influence the decisions on the floor of the house, you have to go to a place where UPND members of parliament are having a caucus and convince them on your views and your values, because once they go to parliament, they hold one position. Absolutely. They vote as one. So even if you write letters to them, threaten them, tell them that we will not vote for you next time, they will not change that position because they belong to a party that has established a position. And I'm saying this to help those that do not know how these things work, so that you go to the right forum in order to influence parliament. Go to the PF caucus, go to the UPND caucus and make your point known as the church so that you can influence their singular position on a singular issue.
Very quickly on the issue of date, which one of the viewers raised, that the date is really crippling.
I think that one thing that I keep saying, and I would like to advise this government, is that it is very, very important for the UPND government to expressly be clear as to where we stand and the baggage they have found that they are carrying. If President Ichilema and the UPND do not explain to the Zambian people that this burden we are carrying, we got it from the PF. Our job now is to dismantle it. We need your patience. We didn't create this mess. We used to tell our colleagues who were there, don't borrow. The World Bank comes and says we owe in the excess of $27 billion. I'm not the one saying it. The World Bank said that. They claim that it's $15 billion. Even that is unsustainable for us. But I think what this government
Can I just interrupt you a little bit? I think we got a caller just before. Good evening. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, we can hear you. What's your name, sir?
Hello, good evening. My name is John Longo, and I'm calling from Ichilema.
Yes, John.
Yes, sir. I would like to make 2 comments.
Go ahead. Please.
First of all, I'd like to just say that I'm following the show, and I would like to say good evening to Dr. MUMBA as well as Ambassador Mr. And so the 2 points that I would like to make are that it is regarding the manner in which the church did not have a strong voice during the time before the election. And I think I do agree with Dr. MUMBA as he reiterates that the church needs to have a stronger voice even going forward. And so I would like to say that sometimes the church appears to have this is a double-sided coin, where in the previous, before the election, you can recall that the voice of the church was very, very less. And so you could not feel the impact of the church with the injustices that were going on, with all the other things that I do not want to recall, to make people remember. And so now to have the other side of the coin, where the church now wants to voice out on this and that in this new government, makes it appear as though they do not have a footing or a standing in as far as the issues of governance are concerned, and also what the church position is regarding different issues. Then the second point I would like to make very quickly is the manner in which our friends, our colleagues, and our brothers and sisters, especially those that are in the previous regime, and the ones that are coming up so often on TV, when they are confronted with issues of corruption, according to them, that appear as if they are accused, as if they are the ones that are accused in a wrongful way by the current government. We must not forget that a few months ago, we were not even able to buy the parking seats. If you take your goodies or your products, your farm products, to a market, you must not forget that you need the go bunches of people that will dictate what you must do and how much you must sell. And so now to have people that come up on TV, and I'm not labeling everybody from the previous regime, I'm talking about the ones that do appear more often than others on TV, without having the decency to be apologetic or even to say we are sorry for the mistakes that we made. I think that such a statement will shower upon the nation that you have people that recognize that they made a mistake. And so even as they want to go forward, even as an opposition now, they have a conscience to know that they made a mistake. And so they would like to go back onto the right track. But then to have somebody that comes up and says, we didn't do this, it's like if we got sold to Makambu with what we have been through in the past and what we know as a nation. I don't want to say much, but those are the 2 issues that I thought I'd bring about that seem to be so problematic for me, especially the last part, where you have people that do not want to acknowledge mistakes and yet want to force people to believe in this and that. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, Frank, we've talked about this. This is brilliant submission.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. And I really don't think I can explain it any better than he has, especially the last one. But I just want to say something. I think that he has said it all. It is important for our colleagues in the PF to understand that during their time in office, they injured many people. They have to come to terms with that. And also there are certain things that were done in the name of them being in power that are now being challenged. And they must, face up with that. And they must also understand that us as MMD, when we were kicked out of office, we were kicked out for lesser sins than the sins of PF. The PF had more sins than us, even in the economy side. The economy side, I can tell you, we had foreign reserves were at almost $3 billion.
Yep.
The guys brought it down almost $1.4 billion. The rate, the kwacha rate, we left it at 3 kwacha 50 per dollar. The guys took it to 23 kwacha per dollar. The inflation, we left it at 6.7%, single digit. They took it to 16.7%. So everything, all the economic indicators, they ran it down. The debt itself, we were, somewhere around less than 2 billion.
Yeah.
They have gone up to 27 billion. They offended Zambia, the PF. They offended Zambia. The issue of violence was a daily discussion on your television sets. Wasn't it refreshing to have the Kabwata by-election with basically no one being hacked? So it is possible. That's who we are. And I think our colleagues must see that they didn't conduct themselves well. So when they are called by the police to answer a question, they should not go with arrogance. The biggest thing they can do, or rather the least that they can do, is to face that camera and say, fellow countrymen, we are sorry for the injuries that we inflicted upon you. Give us a chance to reflect and give us a chance to see how we can continue to pay, reparations for what we did.
Absolutely.
They need to be sorry, but they are not sorry, and that's the problem. Secondly, I think that he has raised the issue of the church, which is extremely significant. He has said it well. I don't know his name, I forgot. But the problem that the church is facing today is the fact that in the last regime, a lot of our church, especially where I come from, the Pentecostal movement and the full gospel, we went head and sinker, whatever you call, hook and sinker with the Patriotic Front. And we obviously came out against the opposition. And we bought into the opposition, into the Patriotic Front, and became as one with them. To the extent that when they lost, it has become very difficult for pastors to rise up and say, okay, now we are the moral voice trying to tell UPND what to do. And UPND is saying, Bishop, just give us some space. We just want to breathe a little bit. You led that group into destruction. Please give us some space to think before we can start to have confidence in you again. So the church will have to build its own confidence back to being the voice of the nation, the common sense of the nation. And we can do this in many ways. First of all, by being able to acknowledge the wrongs we have done, because we are human, although we are bishops, we make mistakes, poor judgment. And those who come out in the open and say, the judgment we made was erroneous, but now we are back on track, we would like to be fair in the manner that we adjudicate on behalf of the Zambian people. I think Zambians will forgive, and the ruling party will start to listen to the church. And it's not everybody, by the way. It's not every bishop. I think there are some bishops, some pastors, some leaders who stood up to say no to what was wrong in the last regime. And you can see by their statements. When they make a statement today, the country listens to them.
Absolutely.
And we would like to see that improved.
If there are no other messages, okay. Good day, Frank and Dr. Mumba. I have two questions. Recently, just a few months of UPND forming government, we've witnessed protests, coming from youths, particularly UNZA, students and volunteer doctors. Second one, do you also think this archaic framework of employing health and teachers only is the base in a way? Anything else? Mr. President, people are saying that laws should not make couples live together by love. What is your comment, sir? Anything else? Brilliant. Can you deal with that? And then I'll close with the last 4 questions, but very short.
Yeah, obviously it's love, Madam Chitika. It's love that makes people stay together, and that should be the basis of a relationship. And that's what we want to protect, to make sure that we don't make laws that are going to attack the union of marriage. It's just like at home. You have certain rules that you have set for your children. You set them because you have a long view of their future, of what you want them to become. So you want to protect them from certain things until they grow up with their own minds. A weak example, but I think it answers that question. The issue of the demonstrations by the youth and the volunteer doctors, these are issues that, for me, I'm very happy. that democracy for a change is working in Zambia, where you can have doctors march with the police, you know.
And it was not violent.
No, they just marched, you know. There are days when we used to apply to the police and say we want to have a demonstration and march. There was not a single one which was allowed. But this time they were allowed. And I think that we should give credit whom credit is due. I think that the doctors have been promised something by this government, and they're asking, when are you going to own up on your promises? The youth were promised, you know, during the campaign, and they are now asking, when are the promises going to be fulfilled?
And the PS actually addressed them.
And the PS addressed them. So I think for me, that's how a democracy should work. A democracy or a good state that is being governed well does not mean there are no demonstrations. I mean, there are demonstrations in the United States all the time. There are demonstrations in Europe all the time. As we speak, London, they could be having demonstrations about COVID. Because democracy makes you express yourself by speech and action.
Brilliant. And make it very short. Let me start with in a parliament which convened recently. Very quickly, what issues would you like this parliament to address?
You know, parliament is structured. It's a structured institution. This particular session is a legislative session. Like today, I do understand they've started with 4 bills. So they are legislating during this time. And they have already been working on these pieces of legislation. And of course, going through cabinet. And cabinet has endorsed that they be presented to the House. So this one, really, we are waiting to see some of those laws that they want to legislate, some of those things that they want to put in place. So this sector of parliament is a legislative sector, and I've already said before on how parliament in Africa or Zambia works. If you want to influence parliament, go to the caucus of the political party.
Would you like, access information bill enacted this time around?
I think so. I think that the UPND promised that, and I think they need to address themselves to the bill, the information bill. It would be erroneous for them if they kept quiet. I think that the least they can do is to address themselves to this one, how they hope to deal with it, and if they are going to make any adjustments to it. The same thing with the Public Order Act. They put their word out there that they were going to do something about it. The Zambian people are waiting. So the UPND must address themselves to this. It's very, very important that they address themselves to these pieces of legislation.
From last, I was going to end with this question, but I'm going to end up with 2 very important but sad, issues. But this one before the 2 sad ones, there are a lot of people have been saying, oh, the UPND government cannot perform worse than PF. Should PF be the benchmark?
No.
Aren't we lowering the bar?
No. PF should never be the benchmark. I said one time, and this is really how crudely I said it in Kabata during the campaign. I said, even if I sat home for 6 months drinking tea, it would be a better deal than we had the past 10 years. Why? Because at the end of the day, the kind of violence and the restriction of some of us in the political process that we experienced, and the marginalization and the brutality towards those who held opposite views, it's something that nobody wants to even dream of. If you go to sleep and you have a dream thinking you are still under that regime of PF, you actually wake up like, Lord help me. So even, I do not think they should be compared. Even the PF must be very careful. The PF, even when they criticize this new government, they should not think by criticizing the new government, they are now making themselves look dearer to the Zambian people. No, the people of Zambia will challenge the UPND on those wrong things and tell them to shape up and do the right thing without looking back to the PF. PF's way to survive is to say sorry. They have not said it. And if they have said it, they have not said it with a true heart for the Zambians to be connected to them. Right now, there's a disconnect between PF and the Zambian people for all that we went through. And I think it's up to them to know that it doesn't matter the criticism they give now. They have no moral standing to make it because they did not do anything better. I'm not saying they should not criticize. They should go ahead. But the Zambian people are saying, oh, yeah, right. You were there not too long ago, and this is how you treated us. Now you want us to listen to you.
We're going to end with 2 very sad issues. And it's the first time I'm ending with a foreign item. First, before the foreign item, You just came back from the combat, and I've never seen you so broken about the accidents, that have been occurring in our country. I want you to delve into that, and that this country can address this, because it's getting out of hand. And then the last issue, there's some dangerous gentleman in Russia called Putin, who could start a very dangerous war anytime from now. I want you to end with those two issues.
Frank, on the issue of accidents, I am deeply, in fact, let me say, because we've discussed this in our team, as a party, we are deeply alarmed at how some people don't seem to be alarmed at the multiplied number of deaths through road accidents. There are many factors, and I'm not going to go into them. Some of them say the roads are bad. Some of them say the drivers are bad. Some of them say that the insurance is not done. Some of them say the drunken driving. There are many reasons that contribute to these accidents, but we can stop them, or at the least minimize them. I call upon government for political will. It does not have to take your relative to die for you to receive that phone call that your mother has died in a bus coming from Nakonde. It does not have to go that far. We can stop this thing, but we need political will. The same way we reacted when HIV came, it was taking people in the same numbers as accidents. We formed a committee, I was in government that time, a task force that tried to find a solution to this matter, and Zambia was one of those countries that reduced the infection rate. We are in COVID time now. We all rose up and started to wear masks and social distancing and vaccination, so that we can reduce this in concerted effort of a task force. We need government to put a task force together. The same numbers, Frank, of people that died from COVID in 2021 are the same numbers that died from road traffic accidents. There's no difference. Then why are we so alarmed about COVID but not alarmed about road traffic accidents? How do we solve this problem? We call on government. All these variants of the road networks, no signage, there are no signs and all that, those are very important. But the problem is there is no police to enforce those things. In other words, if we're going to stop this, we need the traffic police to be retrained, to be harsh, to raise the fees of those who disobey the road rules. You've got to go for the throat in order to stop this rot and the deaths that are necessary. We plead that we stop these deaths. It's almost suicide cases, and government is the only one right now that has power to use the law. I mean, there are bad drivers everywhere, Frank.
Yeah.
I lived in the United States for some time, and there are terrible drivers, drunk drivers. But when you are aware that any time the camera will get you, the police will get you, you avoid things. And if they get you, you pay high fees. And that reduces
the license is suspended.
The license is suspended. Now they buy everything. You can get a license without going for a training. You can get insurance without. You can renew the license of the vehicle without them looking at your vehicle. It's a mess. And the only way to do this, to fix this, in the same way, President Ichilema, you have fixed the markets, you have fixed the bus stops. Let's fix the road accidents by making sure that the law is followed and the police are trained and held accountable for that. There's no other way, because if the government does not help us, these people will continue to do what they do, and there will be no peace and life on the roads. Coming to what's happening in Ukraine. I think that Africa sometimes we dissociate ourselves from these global activities, and yet we are the most impacted by these activities. Right now, President Putin has made it very clear. He played the game in the past, they're calling it Putin playbook, where he threatened to attack Ukraine and realized that this is going to be a huge one. So he decides to start with the separatist states, those two, and recognizes them yesterday. And today he has moved in the troops in those areas in Ukraine. And he's daring Ukraine to react.
Yep.
The first missile they might send within their own territory will be a declaration of war.
Yep.
And Russia will say, we've been fired at, and let's start. But the consequences of that are that no Ichilema akabamo. And we are saying that we need to have a little voice as well, to put in as much as we can to speak peace to these people. Whatever diplomacy we can make. You remember when the Americans were about to attack Iraq?
Absolutely.
We're a small country. But we looked within ourselves, is there anything we can do to try to avoid that?
And KK go.
And we found KK and said, KK, please go. Saddam Hussein is your friend.
Yep.
KK flew in just before the battle began. There's always something you can do, it doesn't matter how small of a state you are, to go and contribute to peacemaking. If that war breaks out, no Ichilema akabamo. And we can only pray that this thing does not escalate beyond its current levels.
Dr. Mumba, always thank you. And we thank God for driving this, discussion. Always a pleasure, always an honor.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
This has been Frank on Camnet. My guest has been Dr. Nevers Mumba, the president of New Hope MMD. Yes, there is a hope in this country, and you can realize that hope. On behalf of my guest, Dr. Mumba, on behalf of my crew, here, the executive director, the pastor and the wife, Pastor Ichilema, and the wife, and of course, the viewers, especially those who contributed to the discussion. Thank you very much. I did say there's hope. You can realize that by simply doing the following. Do your very best, and God will do the rest. Thank you for watching. God bless you. Good night.